Well, I'm going to kick off by saying a warm welcome to everybody here, and to thank you for taking time to join us this evening, um, and for your interest in the DCU Executive MBA. I just want to start off, I suppose, by saying a few thank yous. First, to MBA candidate Kieran Bulger, and to alumna May Tan from the 2019 class, and who have kindly joined us to share their experience with those who are, I suppose, at least considering undertaking the journey. And I also just want to say thanks to my colleague Patrick Flood, Professor Patrick Flood, who's joining us from Frankfurt this evening, and a word of thanks too to the business school marketing team, Kira and Sarah and Molly, and our senior program coordinator Nuala Lonigan, all who did all of the hard work. That team did all of the hard work to put this together. So in terms of this evening and the point we're at with the program this year, it's a particularly exciting time for us on the Executive MBA program team, because for two reasons. One is that we've just completed a review of the curriculum, which took us about 12 months, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as we proceed. But this is the first time we're giving a public outing to the results of that. So it's there's quite a lot of thought and effort has gone into that, and so it's nice to be able to share that with you this evening. The second is that we've been recruiting for the next intake since January, and we're making very good progress, and delighted to see a really strong and diverse group of people coming together and taking shape that will form the nucleus of the new first year class in September. So it's a nice time of year for us. We're able to see some of the fruits of our labours and to share that with you. So thanks again for joining us. Patrick always gives me a hard time about the picture of the elephant, and May suggested that it's the elephant in the room, and that's possibly the case. But I for some reason I keep using this image.
Is that you, John?
What?
Is that you, the elephant in the room?
It could be. It could be. Yeah, the image is actually borrowed from ING Bank around, and they were trying to capture this notion of trying to be a large global scale organization, but with required to be as agile as the much smaller organizations, which can compete with it on smaller scale. So I suppose I like the image because of that agile. That notion of a very large organization being able to keep up with the much smaller ones, which have a bit of an advantage in terms of agility. So for what it's worth, that's what that's about. I often just leave it there and forget to mention it. So now where's my? Okay, here we go. This phrase is supposed to be a Chinese curse, actually, or is recorded as such, but is of dubious origin. So I'm not quite sure anybody in China has ever heard of it. But it was a British MP some long time ago who referenced it. And so the idea, I suppose, or the reason I kind of included here is that the concept is one which is relevant, as more relevant than ever. I think that in terms of the environment we work in and live in, we are indeed cursed if that is a curse, and because there are certainly interesting times. The amount of change and continuous ambiguity about the future is probably at an all-time high, even in the year that's in it, quite aside from the events in Ukraine, the ongoing war there, but also in the business world, the impact of chat GPT, and even since the beginning of this year, is enormous. Really, would have counted for 20 years worth of change in a previous life, but somehow it has to be absorbed, and we have to take that on and move on from it. So I do think we do live in interesting times, like it or not, and will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. And this was relevant for us because we undertake every 5 years or so a curriculum review of the Executive MBA program. And on the previous couple of occasions, the program was reviewed very thoroughly, but essentially the same kind of structure was retained. So we've had a similar structure in place since the early 2000s, and it's stood us in good stead. The program had the core content of the program is rock solid, but in this changing world, I think we had the opportunity to revisit again and to see, could we reframe it in some ways that would make it more relevant and useful to today's executives. And really the question we were asking ourselves has been, how can our MBA best prepare executives to thrive and perform to their potential in what's a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. And so that was that kind of context for us in terms of trying to tackle this. And to some extent, we validated a lot of what we were doing already. But we have also reframed it in some interesting ways that I hope will prove positive for those undertaking the program in the future. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but essentially the process we undertook involved engagement with a wide range of stakeholders. It was over 12 months. The process was led by our executive dean, Dominic Elliott, who joined us earlier this year, Professor Dominic Elliott, I should say, and he has a passion for the MBA, and so we undertook a global, spelled incorrectly, I'm sorry, a review of MBA programs. We engaged significantly with our current students who were really helpful to us in giving us detailed input on the experience and the content. And of course, faculty, alumni, and the school has an industry advisory board of senior people from all the major sectors of the Irish economy, so they were really helpful and proactive. And of course, we are AMBA accredited, so we got specific input from the Association of MBAs, who gave us very helpful input on benchmarking against the best in the world around these kind of programs. And so from that we distilled a whole lot of insights, did a lot of talking about it, and have emerged with this shape of the program. So I suppose previously, I didn't want to put up talking through what we had previously, but essentially, although the total kind of the content is similar, the mode of delivery in the past would have been a lot of 5-credit modules, which to an extent operated independently of each other, although there would have been conversations around them. But you would have a module on, for instance, if you take the top right-hand quadrant, there would have been 5-credit modules on economics, on finance and accounting. And they would each have been 5-credit modules. What we're moving towards here is a more integrated, team-taught and team-assessed framework whereby a single 15-credit module will cover all of those. It'll be designed and delivered by a team of our colleagues on that side of the house, and there'll be an integrated assessment. And the thinking behind that is fairly practical, really, is that you don't go into work on a Monday and say, well, I'll have my economics day today and I'm going to do my finance on Tuesday and my accounting on Wednesday. You're using these skills to solve business problems in an integrated way. And so we feel that this more integrated model of teaching and assessment will serve the kind of people who are taking this program better in terms of conversion of the knowledge straight into application to solve the challenges and problems in the workplace. And so as you can see, there are 4 kind of core elements there that are 15 credits or more, which is Patrick is going to describe a little bit more about the leading people for positive change. When in a moment we'll give you a sense of that. But just to highlight the fact that there's further alignment outside the modules as well. So in the case, there's a 2-year module called Personal and Ethical Leadership, and that is a 10 credit that runs over the 2 years, and that is very closely aligned now with what Patrick will be doing in the Leading People for Positive Change one. So essentially around leadership, you've got the personal leadership, you've got the leading people in organizations, and those 2 pieces would combine to be a kind of an integrated learning comprising 25 credits of a 90 credit program. So I won't dwell on all of the detail of this because it's a lot to cover, but I hope you get a sense that the main focus of the program, strategy formulation and execution, sustainability and strategic consultancy team projects. And again, the sustainability aspect of that will be reflected particularly in our international engagement, which is a 1 week visit overseas where all the class travel together and have a series of lectures and company visits and so forth. So without dwelling too much on that, I'm going to hand over to Patrick to share a little bit about the module on leading people for positive change. But I forgot this slide, which I'm just going to highlight the features I mentioned. I mentioned integrated assessment. I mentioned team teaching. So you would have you will not have a single faculty member delivering a 15 credit module. You'll have a team of people. There are no examinations now in the program. We were down to very few anyway. We've got rid of the last, and we don't feel it's an appropriate way to assess executives, and we don't think it's helpful from a learning perspective. And so those are gone. And it'll be a hybrid delivery, which is essentially a mixed model whereby about 70% of the lectures will be held face-to-face in DCU, and I'll talk about the scheduling of that in a moment. But about 30% will be online, and that's kind of where we think the sweet spot is in terms of the feedback we've had from people. We've had people take the course fully online. We've had people taking it fully face-to-face again, and we feel that there's a sweet spot there which acknowledges the demands of travel and so forth, but also acknowledges the benefits of classroom-based learning and the networking opportunities and the relationship development opportunities that provides. So we can talk about this later in Q&A if you wish, but those are some of the features I wanted to just emphasize coming out of the curriculum review. And my apologies, Patrick. I'm going to hand over to Professor Patrick Flood. For those of you not familiar with his work, he has a series of very well-known books on leadership from, I think there's about 14 books, Patrick, if I'm not doing you a disservice. Quite apart from his many other publications in referee journals and so forth. So a global leader in terms of thinking and talking and sharing and learning about leadership. And so, Patrick, I'll hand over to you here.
Great. Thanks very much, John. The module that I'll teach with one of my colleagues, probably Dr. Margaret Heffernan, is called Leading Positive Change. And there's 2 or 3 different aspects to this. One is, how do you lead yourself? And that means you need to understand yourself, need to understand your motivations, need to understand your personality, need to understand the networks that you have and the competence that you can build with those networks. And one of the exercises we do very early on is called the Leadership Life Story. And the purpose of the Leadership Life Story is to reflect on your life to date. It's done in a very structured way, and you discuss it with one member of the class, and then we have a group discussion. But the purpose of that is to build trust within the class between individuals. In addition to that, you have the experience of being vulnerable, and that's a huge topic now at the moment in the leadership literature, the capacity to be vulnerable, because that helps you to build trust and encourages the other people to be vulnerable with you, because we're not all perfect, but we can certainly help each other a lot if we trust each other. Then we move on to look at leading teams, and we have a number of topics there. How do you create and maintain and execute a high-performing team? And many of those teams are operating across international boundaries. They're operating in an agile way. They are more correctly probably described as teaming because they are so international, so fluid, so dynamic, people coming and going to make things happen. And we have lots of really wonderful cases that are really positive and inspiring in that area. We look at the executive team and performance as well. I've done a lot of work personally on that, and I've also sat on teams, but I've also coached business teams at the executive level. And what we find there is that the group dynamics that happen within those teams and the extent to which they trust and share with each other has a big impact on performance. We'll be looking at board dynamics as well, because increasingly where we have people in the classroom with us for the MBA program who have moved to the board level, so they need to understand how to make an effective board work. We look at transformational leadership, and we look at leading for net zero, which of course is another reason why we have the title Leading People for Positive Change, because in an era of sustainability, we need to always think of how sustainable is this? Does it help the environment? Does it help organizations become sustainable in a real and tangible way, as distinct from a greenwashing way? Then we move on to look at leadership in organizations, how you build people capital and how you build capabilities of leaders and managers, and the role of the line manager there, and some work on skills. If you recruit people properly, you probably have solved 80% of your performance problems in the organization, but that's not often well done. And as a result, we need to look at selection, and we need to look at the psychological contract. We also focus in on talent, engagement, and developer, talking about A players and B players and how they're absolutely essential to each other and to the organization. And then we finish up by looking at leading change, power and politics, which is always the favorite with the MBA students. And we learn how to diagnose organization culture, how to manage change in organization development, change tools that you might use, and of course the ongoing future of work. So it's a pretty broad module. It has multi-levels: individual, team, organization, and the leadership of change embedded in the whole thing. And our experience is that we create a dialogue in the classroom, and we also create a continuous conversation. So the cases are very often live, what's happening in one particular MBA student's life in their organization, and we try and help people circumvent some of the power and politics issues that they're facing. But it's a very enjoyable module to teach. The students that we get are very informed. They have a lot of experience to bring to the table, and we have a very nice dialogue.
Super. Thank you, Patrick. You could probably base the whole thing on the national broadcaster in Ireland at the moment. That's another thing.
We'll get one or two of them in as guest speakers, John.
Some of them may be available, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so thank you, Patrick. Thank you very much. And Patrick's going to stay with us, so we can we can go back to him with questions if you wish. I'm just going to push through just some more information to kind of get that to you. This is a 2-year program delivered 1 evening per week. You probably know this, but specifically Thursdays 2 to 9 p.m. and there are also 3 to 4 Saturday workshops per semester. So mostly half days, but a couple of full days as well. And 2 enterprise engagement residential visits. One of those, the first is in Ireland in year 1, is a couple of nights or 1 night, I think. And then also bear in mind that the time commitment would include a full day induction in September as well. And I would really encourage you not to miss that. Each year is comprised of 2 12-week semesters, and and as I mentioned, about 30% of the Thursday sessions will be held online. We're still working out the details of the timetable there. And again, assessment for all modules is via continuous assessment, a mix of individual and team in most modules. And so students are assigned to teams for the first year at the induction workshop in September. Again, good reason to be there, I suppose. So, just to mention that the capstone sustainability and strategic consultancy project is team-based. There isn't an individual dissertation or anything. Work on that commences in the latter half of first year and is completed by the summer of year 2. So that is the general kind of shape of the program. Again, happy to take questions on that later. Just, I suppose, in terms of what we think distinguishes us, in reading, I have the privilege of reading at the end of the program personal reflections from all of the students, as Kieran will be painfully aware at the moment, I suppose, because he has had to pull this together over recent months. But I think when reading those, one of the things that emerges is that a lot of people say, well, I came to the program thinking I wanted to learn about economics and technology and data analytics, but really what I've learned most about is myself. And I think that's kind of surprising to people when they think about an MBA. It's not what they think of first. So I do think we place that front and center, and it's very important. I'm not going to read through all of this, but the professional knowledge is something you would expect, and we do deliver on very much. I think durable skills, I don't like the term soft skills, I think durable skills, these are the skills that really matter. The half-life of things like technology skills is down to about 2 years now. In other words, about half of what you'd learn in a 4-year degree is obsolete 2 years after you graduate. But these skills aren't. These are the core skills, and if you look at things like the World Economic Forum, they're confirming that the growing importance of these skills for people, in particular in senior leadership roles. And the other, I think, things that would be emphasized in Patrick's and other modules would be the mindset, a leadership mindset, a strategic mindset, a sustainability mindset, growth mindset, and so forth. So all of these things, I think, add up to a distinctive value proposition, something, a combination of these things enable you to realize your leadership potential. And without further ado, and apologies for keeping you waiting, but I wanted to introduce you to two of one of our alumni and one of our almost alumni who is just completing the program, Kieran. So I'm going to ask May, if you don't mind, first, to tell us a little bit about your experience with the program.
Right. I start off with, literally why I want to do the MBA. And we know that it is actually a unique approach to developing, the business leaders of tomorrow. But for me, as a doctor, I deal with a lot of corporate clients. So mainly on when you go into companies and you explain what you're doing, particularly in consultancy on their health and well-being program, and you try to tell them that, well, you understand their business, but there is no qualification in that particular aspect for me to justify, despite that, it wasn't coming from them, but it's much more coming from me. And I suppose that, it is credible as it is having the MD qualification, but the MBA for me create the commercial, connection between the two and fulfilling the formal training in business that I was lacking back then. Also, through this program, I must say I truly enjoyed the 2 years. If you ask me frankly, is it hard work? Yes, it is. And it was harder then because we do have exams. And John, I love to come back and do the MBA without the exams. I think I would sail through with first class honors all the way through. But, the gateway for MBA is gateway for networking, not just within your own company, but to all over the world. And, it's like a connector, one switch. And people say there's a 7 degree of separation. I strongly do not believe that. When you actually are making effort to network, it is actually, 1 degree of separation. It also helps to maintain your relationship, whether it's with your peers or whether with your network somewhere else, and then establish a stronger network, which has actually helped me to grow myself personally, grow also my thoughts, grow also my goal. And now, hopefully in the next 4 months, I'll be launching my own platform for MedTech in men's health. So it's actually exciting. And I suppose that, thank you to, Prof. Foreman, which you're going to come through the innovation aspect of things. It gives you the whole entire spiel of writing your own proposition, coming with innovation. And then after that, you put that into, reality. And that is a testing for me. And the testing actually, when pitching it during our innovation class, it had actually opened a huge way of a gateway for me. And knowing that whatever I have ideas, it actually will work, and it will make a huge impact, not just for me, but to everybody around me, because I'm in healthcare. So I want to do more, and I want to reach people in a bigger, wide, area that's quite difficult when you see face to face. So with virtual and the rest, through platform, it is much easier to do. And despite that, I'm a keynote speaker. I do during clinic, you do one-to-one sessions with a patient. And now as a keynote, you touch 1 to thousands. Is very easily approached through this way. And I suppose with whatever that's been taught last 2 years in 2017 and 2019, I learned a lot. And people say that, well, it's a lot of work. Yes, but if you have your life organized, it is a walk in the park. And coming from a medical profession that has nothing to know about business, I guarantee you it was a lifetime for me. I learned so much. And there's all I can say. And then I remember Patrick will use Nancy Adler to talk about his talk in transforming leadership and who molds you. So he will tell you all about it. And it's really exciting. You do learn about yourself. You're totally a different person. And the network around you, whether your friends, your teams that you're going to partner with, it's going to be friends for life. Because up until now, the class of 2017, 2019, we still talk to each other on an MBA group in WhatsApp. So I would encourage anybody. It is, how would I say, a time well spent, particularly in this program. I must say, I do learn a lot, and I'm more than happy to connect. If anybody wants to ask me questions, or anybody wants to go through certain modules you're not happy about, or want a little bit of prompt, I'm more than happy to mentor and to show the way, help you guys through it. If you Google my name there, you'll find me very easily on LinkedIn. And in fact, on Google as well, there's about 5 pages of me. So do try to get onto the program. It's worth it. And I suppose it's not just that you want to get to the program. I'm pretty sure John and Patrick will tell you, you have the sorts of interviews that you have to go through to see whether you fit, in the group or not. So it's not just that you open the door and you want to join. I suppose you have to pass from them as well to see whether, are you a good candidate or probably not suitable, etc. But if you do get in, you enjoy it. Trust me, it is not just about hard work. It is a lot more than hard work. And by the way, they did not pay me to say this. This is strongly from.
Yes. I'm glad you said that, because we're definitely not.
Passion. No, but it's my passion. I learned so much. I also do a lot of programs now in the leadership and persuasive leadership that Patrick do. I do one, and 6 seconds you have to capture yourself in the audience. So I remember that very, very well, Prof. So whatever you taught me did not go down the drain, I can tell you.
Thank you so much, May. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Kieran, Kieran, do you want to talk? You're a little more raw.
Yeah, I can't say I'm not being paid for this one, because I am biased in this one. I haven't got my final marks yet, so I have to be careful what I say on this. But like coming into this call, I was thinking, what do I say? And I'd say like, oh, I have a unique story that I'm coming in, and it's not what I expected. And to John's words, it's pretty much that. Like, from my perspective, I'm an engineer. I worked for many multinational companies, and I was very engineering, technical focused. And I was trying to find some way out of that to more kind of see more on the business side of things. So in my mind, this was a reason to go in and look at the finance element of it. Coming out of it, none of that has actually really hit me in terms of the main takeaways from this one. It really has been who I am as a manager, as a leader to my team, and also how I treat myself in terms of kind of work-life balance, making sure that I'm focusing on what's important for myself and not kind of trying to fix the world, which is impossible on that. So I always remember my first day going into the MBA, we were all introducing ourselves, and I kind of proudly stood up and said, like, everyone was talking about how big their teams were, they were managing and this, that, and I proudly said, I don't manage anyone and I don't want to manage anyone. two years later, I'm now managing a team of about 30, and I absolutely love it. I had gone from what was an extremely stressful near burnout situation in a previous role that made me kind of go, no, I can't do this again. I can't go back into leading teams in high yield. And it was really that kind of initial work with Patrick that kind of made me kind of realize who I was and kind of certain flaws in my own self that I needed to work on. And I've spent the majority of the MBA not just doing the academic side of it, but also working on myself in terms of how do I make myself a better person within work? How do I make myself a better leader? How can I get back to where I was and exceed beyond that? And that's been the real key takeaway for me. How can I get back to being a proper leader for the company that I'm in? How do I able to lead a high performing team, but also be a point where I am a leader and I'm not taking everything onto myself? So I found that to be the main key takeaway that I've gotten from this. I've also learned bits on business as well, so there is that element to it. But I've to Dr. May's points there, and the friends that you build up on that one, the group that I've been in since first year, and we get on like a house on fire. We're constantly just talking. Now, obviously, we're still working on some elements of it, but I've made really good friends, not just within this group, but in the other groups that are there. I found the ability to work with people from industries I would never, ever deal with has been really interesting. Opens up your eyes to where the same problems are in different industries, but also where different problems lie that I may not have come across yet. So that's been invaluable to me, and I think I definitely recommend it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, not just from the learning aspect, but the social aspect as well. Being able to go into college on the Thursdays, spend the time with the people, with the lecturers, doing the group exercises, getting involved in all of the external activities around the international travel and the local travel elements to it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It has been hard, and there is some elements that we're still just closing out on. Should have it all finished hopefully in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But all in, I definitely recommend it. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and found it very, very, very useful.
Super. Thank you very much, Kieran. Thank you.